Hi, everyone. My name is Shreya. I am the developer advocate for Auth0 for startups, and today I'm going to be joined by Michael Novotny. Hi, Michael. How's it going?
Hi Shreya, how's it going? I'm doing good.
Thank you so much for joining us. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yep. I am the director of content here at Vercel. Me and my team are constantly looking for ways to get our message and our story out there, whether that's furthering companies along their journey of adoption to the front end cloud, or helping users who are already a part of Vercel or users of Next.js understand how they can get more from our platform or our frameworks.
Awesome. I'm really excited to talk to you today. This episode is going to be focused on building multi-tenancy applications with Vercel and Auth0. And I know on our end in the startups world, we have a lot of customers that are building B2B applications. In fact, it's actually quite skewed. There's like 80% of our customers are building B2B apps. So I'm curious how it looks like on your side of things. Are you running into a lot of customers that are building those types of apps?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a good mixture. We see all kinds of stuff just given the range in which we, offer things on our platform, all the way down from just, hobby projects and, personal sites and all that kind of stuff. And then on the other end of the spectrum, enterprise, big companies that are running massive businesses on top of Vercel. But that middle spot, that B2B spot, that is a really cool space, and we see a lot of builders operating in that space because they have ideas, and they are usually solving their own problems, and it winds up turning into something that is beneficial for other people, and so they wind up creating these B2B applications out of solving their own problems, and then it winds up being something way more than what they intended, which is really cool because you can start off with an idea and actually see that grow into something bigger than you possibly anticipated.
Yeah, and there's something really satisfying about knowing that a product that you're building is now needed by businesses and not just individual consumers. When you're working with these developers building these B2B apps, what are some of the requirements that you're seeing, whether it's a hobbyist project or an enterprise project? What are things that are like really needed to build these apps?
Yeah, I think really what is the primary driver behind the people that are building these things is they want these infrastructural concerns and other things kind of fade into the background and just melt away from the forefront of their mind, because really when they're in this mindset or this space of building things, they don't want to worry about those things like security or auth, or infrastructure that scales with demand or any of that kind of stuff, because they're really focused on their idea and their product, and they want the rest of that just to go away, to in a sense. They want the ability to know that it's there, how to tweak levers and knobs as they need to along the way, but most of the time they just want it to fade to the background.
I love that. I love how you phrased it. I'm not even going to add anything because I think that was perfect. And it really encapsulates like what a lot of the feedback is that our customers are giving us as well. So in the demo today, I'm going to start screen sharing now. We're going to take some time sort of looking at what the authentication authorization piece looks like on the Auth0 side. And then at the very end, we're going to take our application and deploy it over to Vercel. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Awesome. So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Auth0's team recently published this SaaS Start application. It was actually very close to the time that we also announced our integration with Vercel. Um, and this is an open source application that basically has like most of the required tools that you need set up for building multi-tenancy with Auth. And so there's a template of this already on Vercel. So if you're just getting started, actually, I'll ask you, Michael, do you have any like information about like what a Vercel template is? What's great about using those?
Yeah, absolutely. Templates are, I would say, one of the main ways customers and users get started on Vercel, because it's one thing to stumble across a GitHub repository, or it's another thing to, read a blog post or something outlining how to do, the integration with whatever you're trying to highlight. But there's something just so simple about templates, and we find that to be a great entryway into the Vercel system, because that's where you're actually tying ideas to something living and breathing and running in front of your own eyes. And so we find a lot of users that get started with templates right away. And yep, familiar with the Auth0 one because I helped you all get it onto the template marketplace. And we did a completely separate video about that one. But it's just a great getting started point, right? Like you can read through the documentation here. You can figure out how to wire and do all that stuff up yourself, or you can click this deploy button here and you're off to the races. So that's just a very quick, easy jumping off point. And then you can clone that repository down to your computer and start, adjusting it to your use case and whatnot. But it's great to get started.
Awesome. We actually already have a video of how to get this set up out already. So we can link that in the description later. But exactly as Michael said, it's a really quick process to get started. However, if you don't, if you're not necessarily directly starting with Vercel, we're going to show you the process of what it looks like if you have your own application set up. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with cloning this repository and making sure that I'm in the right space where I'm doing it. In the meantime, Michael, would you mind telling us a little bit more about like some of the customers that you have worked with directly who are building B2B applications and the types of things that they're building?
Yep, absolutely. I would say there's really two primary use cases that I think encapsulate the majority of the type of B2B applications that people are building. And it has less to do with like industry specific type stuff, and it has more to do with like conceptually what they're trying to build. So one of them is adding, you have like your core level platform or service that you're offering, but you want to offer a personalized space that kind of sits on top of that. Usually that surfaces through having subdomains and having, underneath the covers for the person or the company building the B2B application, they have a wildcard, domain and SSL cert and all that kind of stuff. But, offering that subdomain kind of gives you your own little space within the overall application. So that's one way, and we can talk about more specific customers now or later if you want to. But I would say then the other way is allowing people to use your service or platform, but do so in almost like a white labeled type of solution where that you can then add your own custom domain over the top of it, make it feel like it's yours, make it, personalized to your company or your brand or whatever. But those are really the two different ways, either subdomains hinging off of, a platform, or then a completely custom solution that kind of sits on top seamlessly or transparently to whatever the SaaS solution is.
Absolutely. And there's so many different ways of going about implementing it. We can definitely get back to talking about the specific customers afterwards. I will do a quick walkthrough of the steps that I just ran. So we're in here. If you're using SaaS Start, all of the steps to actually get it onto your local device are written out here. So you clone the repository, you go into the right directory, make sure that you have Node, the correct version of it installed. So I think anything upwards of the 20th version should be good. And then you want to make sure to also install the Auth0 CLI. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, that looks great.
A little better. Okay, awesome. And the Auth0 CLI is what we're going to be using to actually make sure that all of the settings that are supposed to be set up for SaaS Start, that the builders of SaaS Start want us to have, are going to be in our Auth0 tenant. So right now, somewhere over here, I have a brand new tenant of Auth0. So I haven't really done anything in here just yet. You'll see that I have no organizations, nothing else set up. And then once you have run the next command that we're going to run, which is down here, it's going to start updating. Well, first it's going to connect to our tenant. So we're going to have to authorize it to have access to it, to Auth0. And then after that, we will start updating those settings. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I'm slightly nervous because I mentioned this to Michael earlier. But
There's nothing like demoing live, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like every time you do something live, something goes wrong. So I'm just like nervously waiting for something.
It's embracing it as a part of the journey.
Exactly. Just being able to laugh about it. All right, I'm gonna press enter, confirm that this is the same code that we're seeing over here. Um, and then I'm going to authorize it to make sure that I'm authorizing it to the right tenant as well. So that's the new tenant, and we're all set up. So now this project has access to this tenant over here. Awesome. Do you want to change it to, yes, I do want to update it to the right tenant locally as well. Michael, when you are going to conferences like Next.js, which recently just happened, are you able to like directly speak to some of the people that are building these types of applications?
Yes, absolutely. They're strong supporters. They are avid users. They are not shy about feedback, which is, a gift. That's how we view it at Vercel, at least. So yeah, we're constantly using their experiences and what they're building to not only shape Next.js, the framework, but then also shape what we offer from a platform standpoint on Vercel.
That I was telling you this over Slack, but I am such a big fan of Next.js. Like our entire team was raving about how great of a conference that was, especially compared to a lot of the other conferences that we go to. You can tell that your team puts a lot of effort into these events.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. It takes a village for sure. It's been fascinating to watch it grow. I remember I wasn't at or a part of the very first one, but I know the humble beginnings of what it started with I think it was Zeit Day Berlin at the time, right? Small gathering and whatnot, and it's been really fascinating to watch the growth and the journey over time. But continue to, just like the frameworks in the platform, take the feedback from the last conference and try to make it something that is beneficial to everyone, that it's something they're looking forward to. It's something they're marking their calendars for, because it really does come down to those in-person interactions that you were talking about. It's one thing to leave feedback on an RFC and GitHub, or reach out to somebody on X or another social media platform, or even do a client call on Zoom. There's just something about, being together and forging those relationships in person that makes it all worth it. You realize, I think it's easy to get caught up in just the things of social media and whatnot, and you realize there's other humans on the other end of this that have real life, things that they're hoping to build, and dreams that they're trying to achieve, and projects that they're just personal passions of theirs. So it's really nice to have that personal connection.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think people are also a lot more like candid, but also empathetic when you're meeting them at these events.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you get out from behind that social media screen and you're talking to another human, it definitely does take on a different tone, a much better one.
Yeah. And they're also like, our team was talking about it last week, but they're also like microcosms of the larger developer community. So there's things that you can learn about the developers on the ground when you're meeting them face to face, that then you can take those learnings and apply them to the larger community, but you might not be able to learn, you know, what type of food they like, what are their like biggest pain points that they don't want to tweet about.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and run the last command over here, which is I'm hoping where all of the magic happens. So let's see. Oops, never mind. Nothing happened here. Um, but luckily, I think this is just a matter of importing this other package. So I'm going to
I
figure
think
out
it is.
how
Yep.
to.
X's a command line interface package. It's probably.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm just going to try to run this. Make sure that I have the package itself, and then I'll rerun the other command.
I think you should be good. We'll find
Awesome.
out. Live
We'll
debug.
find out. Was this part successful?
Yes, it's just saying that the version or overall you might have some vulnerabilities. That's just npm being a good soldier.
Being super secure. Awesome. So let's try to run this again.
Yeah, so X is actually producing that little spinny wheel and the check marks there. That's what it's really great at.
Oh, I see. That's so cool. Okay. I tried to run this demo yesterday, and so I knew that I had to, like, I debugged it already. I knew I had to get it. I just wasn't sure why I was
Yep,
getting it.
yep. It produces the nice little interface you got there.
Awesome. Honestly, great user experience. I want to highlight, so once we've run that bootstrap command, what's happening right now is you can see that we're creating all of the client grants and we're adding all of the roles into our Auth0 tenant. So let's actually see if we're able to, right. So now you can see that the admin role and the member role that was created here with whatever scopes were set up in here are now set up in our tenant
Awesome.
page. Cool. So this application is working. I think the next step is probably just to run it. So let's go ahead and run npm run dev and open the app over here and pray that it works. Beautiful. It's working.
You did it.
Yeah. It's a lot more satisfying when it's happening and you're like in front of a camera. Perfect. So the next step for this is really just to see if it works, right? So once you have your application up and running, I'm going to go ahead and create an account, get started. So right now we know that we don't have any users. If I go in here and create a random password and give the application access, I'm going to verify it on my screen in front of me. Perfect. And so the way that this application is set up is that on login, you are the admin of an organization. So you can name the organization. An organization is really where that multi-tenancy piece comes in. So every organization is a business, and then the businesses can have admin roles, member roles. They can decide what their login experience looks like and everything else. So Michael, what should we name our organization? Is there something that you can think of?
Oh, geez. Man, I wasn't looking to get all super creative on the spot here. I don't know.
We can just go with like boba since
There
that's
you
the
go. Let's
theme
do boba.
today.
That's great.
Perfect. Also, just note that Michael and I both have our little boba drinks on the side over here. All right, I'll go ahead and create that organization.
I like the breaking
Um,
news at the bottom there. I didn't expect that. That's awesome.
this is why Kayla and I shouldn't have access to tools because we'll always find like ways to make something funny out of it.
That's just the boba talking. You're fine.
Awesome. Let's see if there are any changes in here. So do I have any users set up? I have one user, perfect. And then when I go into organizations now, I have our Boba organization. Beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and close the verify email. I don't know if I went and verified it. I'm going to hope I verified it. But that's pretty much it. And then you can use this application, this open source app, if you want to. You can go ahead and build your own application if you want to. The next step is trying to figure out how to get this onto Vercel.
Can I ask you a question real quick? I mean, so
Yes,
we,
please.
we walked through the setup, we walked through the template, but what are you actually getting with the template? What is all coming together there?
Like what this app itself is offering you?
Yeah. I mean, essentially what we have, right, is you have behind the scenes there, you have a Next.js application, right? And you have it then already wired up or pre-configured, stitched together with a full-on Auth0, flow for everything, right? That's really what we're talking about as far as like a accelerator or a boost to getting started. Again, you could go read Next.js documentation. You could go read, Auth0 documentation, or I mean, you can still do those things, but you also have, essentially the results of all of that labor that you would have had to do yourself right here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like people can call it various different things. I've heard it being referred to as like an admin portal a lot, but it's basically just a place where your businesses can have their teams manage their own tenant within your application. So
Yep.
that's the setup that we're trying to get to. Um, and yeah, like Michael said, you can go through the template route or you can build it on your own if you want to. Um, so the next step is going to be for us to actually go into Vercel and then add this in. So I'm going to do this however my brain thinks it works, but please feel free to correct me if I'm doing something wrong,
No, you're fine. You're
Michael.
good.
Okay, so I'll go into the dashboard. And then the next step is to add a repo from your Git provider. So I know so far I haven't actually committed this to GitHub. So I'll probably spend a couple minutes just doing that. I will start by creating a new repository, and then I'll pull up this tab over here. So in GitHub, I'll create a new repo. I'll call this Demo Auth0. I'll private it for now. And in fact, before we even go over to the Vercel side of things and actually demo that piece, could you walk us through this website that I ran into a couple of weeks ago, which is explaining like the multi-tenancy piece on Vercel?
Yep. So yeah, this is our landing page that we have that explains kind of this multi-tenant SaaS, B2B, whatever you want to call it type deal. Many names, right? All kind of encapsulated in the same thought process here. But this is really where we're telling our story then of, what people are trying to build and achieve and the different things that you get by building on Vercel. By choosing us as a place to deploy your applications. For this screenshot, this is what I was trying to talk about at the beginning of our conversation here, is that there's several ways that you can do this, right? Like you're talking about infinite, subdomains off of, your application so that you kind of have your own little slice or your own little tenant within a larger platform, or complete customization to the point of even offering in that kind of like white label fashion, the ability to sell domains or offer domains, kind of through your own business or your own product, but still leveraging that behind the scenes from a Vercel standpoint, because we have APIs where you can, adjust, DNS or even purchase domains or do a whole bunch of stuff, as a business building on top of Vercel as well too. But beyond that, there's other things that we call out here specifically as well too, like instant SSL certificates, managing those for you, renewing those for you as well too. And I mean, that just takes me back to days of working at other companies. I remember us renewing SSL certificates and then putting reminders on our calendars to come back, 11 months later so that we can renew it. And then that would fall off or the reminder would get lost. And then we would have downtime because the certificate expired. And that's just not, again, back to the start of the conversation. That's not stuff you want to worry about. You just want to worry about building your product and, addressing your customers' feedback and needs and all that kind of stuff. And that even dips then into the zero maintenance side of things. I think it even calls out there, the renewal of the SSL certificates, but it's more than that as well too. If you think about everything that goes into maintaining or managing a server, everything from making sure that you apply patches to different pieces of software that are running on your server and whatnot, as just another example on top of SSL certs, right? Like that's all the hidden cost in server management. That's not to say that there isn't a time and place to do those things, and your business might have, needs to do that themselves. But for a lot of people, for a lot of builders, a lot of creators, that isn't things that they want to worry about. They just want to worry about their product. And so that's what we mean behind like the zero maintenance is we're taking care of those things for you. You don't need to. You can just focus on building your application.
That's awesome. I really love how, and not to be like a super fan or anything, but I love how certain elements of these, like the SSL certificates, almost feel like they should have been done a long time ago, you know, like, this shouldn't just be happening now. People must have needed it and wanted it for a long time. So it's great that you're taking that feedback and actually implementing it, but then elements of this are also, like, innovation. And every time I go to, like, a Vercel talk or a Next.js keynote speech or something, there's always elements of, like, things that I would have never thought about, or the developers that I work with have never thought about, but you're thinking about it, like, proactively based off of the conversations that you're hearing. Um,
And
that's awesome.
it's all about reducing friction and saving time, right? Like
Mhm.
the time is limited, and the speed of business is fast, and depending on what you're building, especially in spaces that we've seen most recently with the previous era, I would say, is like Web3, and now the era of AI. Like the last thing you want to be doing is meddling with all that server infrastructure type of stuff. Like the pace is fast, and
Yeah,
you don't want other things taking away time from the core focus of what you're here to do.
absolutely.
And again, we have a completely RESTful domains API where you can do all kinds of things. Like I said, from managing specific DNS records, or buying and purchasing domains, or doing any of that kind of stuff. That's all possible through our API, which really hints at the other tab that you opened up there as well too. It's just another template as well too that you can deploy and whatnot. But the platform starter kit really kind of sets you up for that way. You can see in the features down below there, if you scroll just a little bit, like it has, multi-tenancy built into it as well too.
Nice.
It's already got wired up. I mean, very common features as far as like building an application, right? It's got image uploads already attached to it, which means it's hooked up to Vercel Blob. It's got the ability for you to brand and style it the way that you need to. It's got dynamic OG cards built into it. Just lots of other things, including multi-tenant preview URLs, which is another feature of Vercel that is super awesome. It's the ability for you to try things out before they're actually live, but it's in a real deployed environment. It's not something you're running locally. It's not something that's hosted on a separate server. It's just waiting for you to say, nope, this is ready. Let's promote it into the main branch.
Nice. And what's the difference between seeing that versus just seeing the deployed version of it?
Really, it's the ability to test in isolation.
Mhm.
So, especially coming from working at large enterprises, the approach that they are used to is bundling or batch releases, right? It's like, hey, we're going to build, and we're, because we don't want things aren't ready. So they don't have things like feature flags, the ability to deploy and have stuff hidden behind different Boolean flags and whatnot through Launch Darkly or through Optimizely or through other partners that we have as well too. And so they're building, kind of just they've done a deployment. That's kind of where the deployment sits. They're now adding stacking commits. We're building a feature, multiple features, especially if you're got a big team and there's lots of things that are going on. And then you do the dreaded deployment day, right? Like when now you've stacked on all these commits, all these changes, and now you just cross your fingers and hope everything goes well, right? And really what these preview deployments are meant to do is, like, for every time that you spin up a branch or a pull request on GitHub, like you get a little off to the side unique URL that allows you to go view a fully functional site and do whatever kind of testing you want to, whether it's automated, whether it's manual, whether you have a QA team or whatever. Like, they can go test just that little feature, whether it's a simple text change, fixing a small bug that was identified in isolation. And if it works, then you just merge that one in, and it's out there and it's live once it gets merged into Made and then deployed out into the Vercel. So it encourages that iteration velocity that we talk about all the time, which is like, hey, don't save things up. Don't increase your risk. This is a way of de-risking releases, right? And that's even in addition to other features that we have, which is like instant rollbacks and whatnot, because every deployment you do on Vercel is out there and is alive and it exists. It's just not surfaced to search engines or, to the public traffic or anything. You can instantly roll back to something that's already deployed because it's already built. It's already out there. You're just changing the reference into where the users are actually jumping in.
Yeah, for sure. I just had a friend whose application, they like rolled out something that had an error in it and the whole app went down. And then the whole process of rolling back took them hours of debugging and fixing. And if you're not even able to like take back the change quickly, then you're just adding more downtime. That's
Yep.
awesome.
So we can hop back over to the other page. Essentially, this is just another way to get started, right? This is like, hey, if you want to start offering a service, building a business, and you want to start offering some of the capabilities that we're talking about here, whether it's allowing people to build off of your product or to extend your product, that's just again a template to get started. It doesn't contain absolutely everything that you need because what you're building is very nuanced, right? But it gives you a lot of the building blocks, the foundational layers of what there is. We can go down to the bottom here and the teams that we empower, and you can click into a couple of these. The ones in white that have the little arrows are ones that you can click into, but Hashnode was the one that I was going to call out as well, and along with Dub is the other one I wanted to mention as well too. But Hashnode is great. Great use case from the standpoint of like they have a core platform. They have the Hashnode platform, but you can go there and spin up your own little space, your own little blog. You can get your subdomain name as like your username, right? So I can blog off of my handle everywhere is MA Novotny. So I could do manovotny.hashnode.app, right? And that's my space. That's my place. And then on top of that, though, if I wanted to turn that into my main website, or even turn that into just my blog or whatever, I can purchase my own domain and have it apply on top of Hashnode. So instead of going to my username Hashnode .app, I can have it be whatever.com, right? Because I purchased that domain, I applied it through Hashnode. And so again, that's stuff that they are offering all through this multi-tenancy business that they are building on top of Vercel using Next.js. Same thing with Dub. That's just a different way of doing things. Like you go to Dub, you use Dub, that they are their own app, but really they're a if you go over to their blog post that I think you opened up as well too,
Yes.
they're essentially offering a way to do like link management. So think of it as like a modern Bitly, with at least in my opinion, it's probably biased, but with way better features and functionality. But essentially, they have a core central app. They're not offering the same thing like Hashnode is, where you can get your own subdomain or something like that. But they are offering essentially to be a link service where you can have a URL shortener, and it's more than just that. You can do a whole bunch of other stuff with it, but they're allowing you to purchase domains through them, which behind the scenes is being purchased on Vercel through using the Vercel API. But they're building a business here then where they can allow their customers to essentially buy domains, create a link shortener service, along with other sharing features as well too. And you can see here, they got a tremendous amount of domains being funneled through Vercel, built on top of their application.
Incredible. I love it. Awesome. And then you have the link to start deploying, which takes you over to the template that you just showed us as well. I love this. So we're gonna now go ahead and try to see how quickly we can get this project deployed into Vercel. So I have created the actual repository. Let me see if I can figure out how to push these changes over to that repository. Remote origin already exists. Git push to new repo.
No, you're good. You're just we'll pair program through this. You got this. Go back to the
We
screen
got
that you
this.
were on.
On this screen?
Nope. The GitHub screen. Yep. So really the
This
next one
one?
is you're going to you already ran that command. So go to the next one. You're gonna
Okay.
you're gonna grab that. That's gonna commit all your changes there. And then the next one's gonna push it up to your main branch.
Okay. Is that, oh, I really didn't have to do that piece then.
Oh, here we go. Oh, it said that it was already added. So if you do
Yeah.
git remote -v, let's check out what you got there.
I think it's trying to push to the original. Git repo.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
You're right. So the reason your command didn't work is because you already have it named origin. Just
Okay.
name it something else. So if you do that same command, if you up arrow a couple of times, but change origin there to anything else, it doesn't matter. Literally anything else.
New origin.
Okay, that works. Origin 2, right?
Origin 2.
So then, yeah, go ahead and do that one there. And then instead of this last command,
Mhm.
instead of you doing push u origin, you'll need to do new origin instead.
I see. New origin. Wow. You
Aha.
are a lifesaver. I spent so long, like embarrassingly too much time trying to get this figured out
You
yesterday.
are good. And there we are.
Perfect. Awesome. So now that we have everything in here, all we have to do is go back into Vercel, import this project. Um, and this is, wow, it's already linked to my GitHub. Beautiful. Uh, and then I just deploy it, right?
Yep.
Awesome. I do have environment variables that I have to add in, but I believe I can upload a file afterwards. So
Yep,
I
you can do
will,
that afterwards. Yep, we can
okay,
take care of that.
cool. So
Now,
while that's happening,
depending
yeah.
on how it builds and what it needs to build with, this could possibly produce a build error when trying to deploy it for the first time. But
Okay.
we can go then add our environment variables, do a redeployment, and everything should be good.
Okay, brilliant. I'm gonna take my screen off the screen and then save my environment variables in like a different file that I can easily upload. Um, Let me see, documents, demos. This is where it is. And I'm not doing this in a very like secure way. I'm just gonna copy all of them into a new file.
Actually, if you copy, you can upload a file, I believe, as well too. But if you just copy the contents of
Uh-huh.
a environment file, you can actually just paste that into the Vercel dashboard and it'll actually parse it all out.
Okay, could you walk me through what that process looks like after we
Sure.
have this piece done?
Yeah.
Um, I think this took like around 2, 3 minutes yesterday, so we can just wait. Um, oh, wow. Okay, sweet. Love the confetti.
The confetti. We're actually changing that soon, so stay tuned.
Oh, wow. Exciting. Okay, so as you said, there is going to be an error, but we know that's because we have to add the variables.
Yep. So if we head over to settings,
Okay.
and then over on the left-hand side in the sidebar there, it says environment variables.
Environment variables.
So there you go. So you can import, there's a button down there where you can import in env. But
Hmm.
then also it says there as well too, like you can paste the entire contents of an env file. If you just put your cursor in the key field and paste it all, it should be smart enough
Ooh,
to parse it all out.
I'm gonna remove it from the actual place that we were
What, are you
and
saying you
bring
don't want us
back.
to copy it all down? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just really bad at rotating my keys, okay? I don't want to risk anything right now. Okay, I'm gonna save it. And you were right. I literally just had to paste everything from that previous file and it automatically like
Look at that.
made them all different
Beautiful.
variables. Sweet. And then the next step would be to redeploy.
Yep. So if we head back over to our deployments and
Hmm.
then hit the little 3 dots on that one particular deployment, there's
Okay,
a redeploy right there.
beautiful.
And then we don't want to use the existing build cache because we
Okay,
want it to pull fresh from the project, which will mean pulling fresh environment variables as well too. So we'll leave that unchecked and we'll go ahead and try it again.
perfect. Thank you for that. We'll go ahead and redeploy. And it's deploying, it's building.
So while it's doing that thing, let's talk about the opposite way to do this, right? Because this
Okay,
is really a player's choice, right? Some
yeah.
people like to start off local and do exactly the route that you just took, right? Which is clone a repo, do some work. Okay, now I'm ready, commit it, our starter repo, commit it, push it up, then you go through the deployment process like we're going through here. On the flip side, that is a benefit to going the templates route as well too. Because what that will do is, and even if we want to go back to, do you have the tab open still with your SaaS starter template? I think it's maybe
the template itself.
not the template itself, where it's actually on Vercel. We can just go back to the
Yeah.
marketplace if you want to. Right here is fine. You can just do.
Do you know how to get to the? I'm on the.
No, you're fine. Just go to vercel.com/templates.
Okay. Templates. Okay.
And then yeah, you can find your SaaS, the Auth0 SaaS one.
Perfect.
There you go. And so then if you hit deploy here, and I know that we've already got a deployed version, but just let me talk you through what would happen. So this would actually take care of setting up a Git repository for you, taking the code that is in the SaaS starter template, putting it in that repo for you. Yeah. Here it's going to say, hey, this template requires an Auth0 integration. Let's do that for you. And then it takes care of connecting the template and Vercel and Auth0 together all in one, right? Yeah. So that you wouldn't have to go through the same process. When you would walk out of actually hitting deploy at the bottom here, you would walk out with everything already wired up, everything already deployed, all the environment variables already set. It's all there for you. Again, there's no wrong way to do this. It's just a different way.
Yeah, if you are using SaaS Start, I would say this is definitely the better way of going about doing it, just to save yourself time. I'm thinking another option could be that I want to, like, is there an option to start a project on Vercel? Not necessarily a template, but just like a brand new project.
Yeah, you can start a brand new project from Vercel as well too.
Okay.
Actually, I take that back. The two primary ways is either starting from a new template, or starting from an existing GitHub repository. But
Gotcha.
At the end of the day, really what Vercel is powered off of and driven off of is a Git repository. So a Git repository has to exist in order for it to go.
That makes sense. And it looks like we have the preview working, which
shows us that it likely worked.
Awesome. Wow. This is exciting. Thank you so much, Michael. Quick question. The thing that you were talking about with the deployed, I forgot what it was called, but we were on this page and we were talking about how you can have the actual deployed link, but you can also have the other.
Oh, the preview URL.
The preview URL, yes.
Yep. So if we go back to the dashboard, I'll point out a couple of different things. You'll actually see, and again, we only have the one deployed instance. We don't really have another change that we're working with here, but I can still explain what's going on. You can actually see that there are 3 domains currently assigned to this deployment. And you have, because we don't have like a custom, like .com URL here, Vercel will assign you a vercel.app one. And it's based off of your GitHub repository name. As long as it's unique, it'll use that, but otherwise it'll append some additional things if it's not unique, right? So really that's our top level domain there. And that would be our public domain until we would add a custom domain to it. And then from there, you can see that we have a branch domain. Now we're committed on main, but if you had spun up another branch then in your project, let's just say new feature branch, right? As soon as you pushed up new feature branch, you would be able to access any code pushed to that branch off of demo-auth0-1-git-new feature. Mm-hmm. That would be your own isolated environment for that one feature. And then even further than that, the third domain that gets assigned is every single commit has a assigned domain as well too. So again, if you were to spin up a new feature branch and we could go in your code if you wanted to, you could change like a title, you could do whatever, push that up to the branch. You would then be able to, off on the side there in that branch URL, see that change independent of what's going on over here in your production application. You'd be able to see that off to the side, test anything that you want to, verify that it's good. And as soon as it's merged into main, it will then kick off another deployment here and promote it essentially out to your top level domain here. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. Thank you so much for walking me through that piece.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you can
was
click on any one of
unsure
those
about what
and
these were.
it will take you to essentially the same deployment because they're all aliased to the same commit at this point.
At this point, okay, that makes sense. Very cool. Awesome. And before we hop off, I did want to do a quick shout out to some of our customers who have been using Auth0 to build B2B applications. So we have Traversal AI. The founder spoke to us about security considerations in AI, but he also gave us this interview to talk about the work that he's doing with building enterprise knowledge management with AI. So if you're curious about how he's using Auth0, you can go check it out over here. And we have another customer, Speed Legal, and you can check out the work that they're doing with making it easier to parse through a lot of legal documentation with Auth0. And yeah, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much, Michael. Cheers to an amazing first episode of Demo Auth0.
Agreed. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.